Hey. Yay.
Hello.
Hi, Deb. How are you?
Well, thanks. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Good to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
I have to silence my phone.
Oh, that's a great idea. I don't know how to silence my landline.
Oh, I wish. I think I have one of those Panasonic phones. I think I can turn mine down. Did you have a good holiday?
You know, I did. I made the decision to start traveling again, so I went to New York for Christmas.
Oh my gosh, how wonderful.
And it worked out just fine. How about you?
You know, I worked or didn't go anywhere, but we had it was quiet. We had a nice quiet holiday.
Yeah, good, good.
That I will say, it was, I feel like I started a lot of projects, but have gone nowhere fast. I mean, they're just projects that are still in the works. Hi, Stony. Hi, James. Let's see, I think we have a quorum. Woohoo! I was worried when Brianne sent the notice out about people not getting the connection. So obviously we all got it. So it's a good thing. Maybe we'll wait 1 minute. It's good to see everyone.
You too. Happy New Year.
Yeah. Whoops, now I've lost my, guys, I have to be adjusting my computer because my screen literally broke on one side. So you might see me moving back and forth or my head going in different places because sometimes it just kind of goes away and then I have to bring it back until my new computer gets here. Whoa. Hi, Martha.
Hi, how are you?
I am well. Happy New Year, everyone. I think in order to keep things on time, I am going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I hope Brianne is there as our admin is there. Hi, Danny. For those of you who are from the public and are attending our meeting, we have numbers for cell phone users and landline users. Our cell phone users can call 253-215-8782 and join the meeting 213-338-8477 or 267-831-0333. And our landline users can connect to the meeting by calling 888-475-4499 or 877-853-5257. We do have a web ID that is 853-3133-1330. And the password to enter is 054505. We would ask that, and I will try and turn my chat, that if you press *9 to raise your hand and we will recognize you as a member of the public. But I don't see anyone here yet, but Brianne, maybe you can help me if I'm missing anyone and help me if I miss any of those hands being raised. So welcome everybody, Happy New Year. It's great to see everyone. Did everyone have a good, quiet December and early January? Hopefully. Okay, I'm almost gonna get to the point where I'm gonna say, okay, everybody unmute yourself.
I don't know if I would call the holidays quiet.
I was gonna say the same.
Oh, I actually, yeah, mine were pretty relaxing. We didn't go anywhere, unlike Miss Deborah, who flew off to New York. Did you see some great public art?
What's that?
Did you see some great public art in New York?
You know, I did see some public art.
That's cool. You'll have to tell us about it at the end of our meeting. Maybe we can have some good ideas.
Oh, well, I don't know about that.
So what I'd like to do is, if we could all again put your video screen on, that's one of the things that the city would like us to. So Danny, if you could put your screen on, that'd be great. And ask for public comment. I am not seeing anyone. See nothing in the chat room. Brianne, am I missing anyone? Yes, maybe not there. So let's go on. We have our November minutes. Brianne sent out to everybody. Has everyone had a chance to review them? And take a look, see if there were any corrections. I did not find any, so I don't know if did anyone else have any corrections to the minutes? Hi, Danny. If there are none, I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the November 16th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Thanks,
I'll
Jenny.
second.
Cool. Tiana, was that you?
Mirta.
Oh, Muerta, I'm sorry. I was looking down. Do we have any further discussion? So there being none, all in favor? Raise your hand and say aye, or unmute yourself and say aye. Opposed? Perfect. We've got minutes that have been accepted for November. We had no December meeting, as we all know, so it gave us a little break. So here we are back at it. And our first item is budget, which again, I've been leaving it on. I think it's just good for us to keep in mind that we do have monies that we're responsible for, and it just keeps it in the forefront if we keep track of the monies that we do have. Unfortunately, we did not get an update from Ashley and from the city in time, but we're still looking at We have the 4,500 in grant monies that we've received for the signal boxes. And then we've got an additional 7,800 in there. And then the amount, that brings us to a little over 12,000 in the other monies that we have that we brought us closer to 20, but we don't have an exact figure on that, is some of our maintenance monies. So in looking at monies to spend, monies that are available for us to spend, excluding that 4,500 is roughly 7,800. And yes. The other thing that we did work on is did some research. Brianne helped with this, which was lovely, to find out, we've had questions, or people have asked questions in the past about if we accept donations, is it appropriate to send them directly to the city, or must they go through Arts Missoula? And in fact, we did get an email from Ashley, who has been working with us on our budget. And first of all, in talking with finance, the donations to the Public Art Committee at face value are tax deductible. So everyone understands that. And then, but the most important thing is that what we would tell people, and most of you, I think, probably already know this response, but that anybody who is interested in doing a tax deductible donation should really talk to their accountant. Now that sounds like the real estate me talking, but it's really any kind of nonprofit. We just want to advise people that if they do want to make a donation to the Public Art Committee, they want to double check with their accountant based on their own financial matters, or their personal financial matters, on how that would be deducted. And in fact, one of the things that Ashley said, that after the discussions with finance, that ideally, and this is a quote, donations should come directly to the city. And it would be their preference that they come directly to the city and being paid to the Public Art Committee. That is what we did last year. And well, actually, that's what we've pretty much always done, but it's nice to have that clarification on that. So, and this is true of grants, foundation monies, all of those types of things. They can come directly to the city. So anybody have any questions on that? Stony?
Kathy, I have a question about the budget. So we don't have a budget report that we can review. Is that right? To
Not
look
not
at
since-
last year's expenses and income or anything like that. To summarize what I heard you say, we have maybe 7,800 available in which we can do projects with.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is what we were given, and you all received it through the end of June of 2021. We have not received anything updated since then. Brianne's been trying. Finance just has not been able to provide us with anything updated. We have not spent any money since then. We've had monies that we proposed for spending. We had $100 for the cultural treasures, but that's not budget yet. That hasn't been spent to my knowledge. Go ahead.
Can you help me understand, Kathy, like what the hang up is? Like, why can't we get financial reports in a straightforward way? It just seems difficult to, and not putting it on you, just trying to understand, like, where is the kink in the system where we can't even understand what our, have an easy report to access.
Brianne, are you there? No, we have, seriously, Brianne has asked every month. Our point person is Ashley. We have received responses that they just have not put efforts towards us. And this again was my frustration. You all know this. even in the past years, because we were not getting timely reports, nor were we getting accurate reports. And we used to, I mean, we used to get accurate reports all the time. So the reason, and this sounds awful that I'm putting pressure, and then we are putting pressure on, but we continue to ask, because if we don't ask, we won't get the answers. Muerta?
So this is Ashley in the finance office.
Mhm. Ashley McDonald, and she's been, she was our point person, and, I don't want to, I certainly don't want to put blame on her, because she has other projects, and we are just one more project for her. I think, if you're willing, it'd be great where to go in and maybe talk to Lee and say, we really do need this. We're pretty darn responsible, and have always been responsible in how we expend monies, how we raise monies, how we expend monies, how we account for monies. But at that same time, if we are, which I think we should, run this committee as a business, or like a business, I should say, that we want, even if we have no changes and no expenditures, it's still good to have those monthly reports.
Yeah, I agree. I'm on it. I think that this committee has, it's all volunteer. And it might be another project on staff's list, but that's not an excuse to me. I think we need to know how much money we're working with. This is a very public and community forward committee. So it's important to know when we're potentially putting a call out, or, if we presented a project to even entertain the idea. I think it's important for us to have the most updated and financial information. So,
correct.
I'll
And
talk
I
to
so
Lee.
agree. And I keep an Excel spreadsheet for projects by projects, and in past chairs have as well, but it's still, many years ago, money has got put into the wrong account. So, again, accidents happen. So we also, I have provided examples of what we had received in the past that made it easier, I think, for everybody to understand project by project. So it was essentially a specific income expense project. And I gave you all a couple months ago kind of an Excel spreadsheet of all of that, which looked way difficult. But in reality, if we just have the name of the project income, the name of all the expenses related to that project, then just at a glance, we can all see truly where we are. And we do have the signal project coming up, obviously. Stoney's working on PAC Live. And so we will be getting probably donations for that. And so just to be able to have that income expense line item information would be most appropriate. So maybe we can talk after this meeting, and it's truly interesting, because 3 to 4, 5 years ago, we did an extensive budget and kind of found out where we were then. And then it just kind of drifted away from that. So it'd be great to get back on track.
Yeah, I agree.
Perfect. Thank you. Now I covered up my budget or my agenda. Rebranding. Stoney, I'm going to call on you, because this was one of the things, and we've all talked about this, and you were thinking that perhaps you might be able to chair a subcommittee, or am I misremembering that once the year got going and once we were off into the new year?
Yeah, so I called a couple of places. I mean, I think we have to start with the budget. Like, I mean, $7,000 is not very much to work with if we're moving everyone's agendas forward. So I actually think, I mean, I tend to be like, what resources do we have to work with? What are our priorities? How are the resources teeing up our priorities? And so just trying to get a sense of kind of how we operate, even though I've been on this committee for quite a few years now at this point. So anyway, I reached out to a couple of places. There's one in particular who did Sparks, their logo redesign. I thought she did a really excellent job of it. Amy Casillo over at Studio Verde. Pretty reasonable logo, and style guide is going to run us about $2,000 to $3,000, which is pretty reasonable. And I like her process and how she's thinking about it. I think it would be worth it for us, actually. I think, like, as far as an investment goes, right now, if you try and search for the Public Art Committee, we are 6 to 8 links down in a Google search. Actually, initial impression is that our committee is under Arts Missoula. If you were to just have face value on the web of who we are, there is no logo on our actual website currently. We're really kind of, or at least what I just pulled up. I didn't see it, maybe it didn't load. But I think one of the things that I appreciated talking with her about is thinking about kind of like, what are we trying to do here? What are we up to? And how do you tee up design to help move you in that direction too, as far as what we're rolling out to the community and how we're talking about ourselves. And so, yeah, I think we're still due for some kind of like bigger soul searching conversations in reality, as far as like, what's our long-term vision here with limited resources, assuming we don't get a director who can help, or at least a full-time person who can actually track the pieces and keep moving things forward. What do you do with that? And what do you do when you have limited revenue coming in? I mean, this 1% business, we don't see very much from that, has been my experience so far. So what actually are our income streams to help? So I think that, I guess I mentioned all of these things in the midst of talking about a logo design, of it actually being like, what are we trying to get out of things? How do we help set up and support future, public art initiatives? And can we do that through like a strategic communications plan that's kind of wrapped into design?
100% agreed. Thanks for doing that research too. And that gives us something. I mean, we have been talking over the past few years, just about everything that we've been doing and everything that Stony just mentioned, everything from our social media to our visual presence and how we bring that all together. And I guess what I would like to propose, and I think this takes maybe some time on all of our parts in the near future, is, and I know we had a long range planning session, but maybe we take a couple hours or maybe more to work through some of this rebranding and answer some of these questions, because we, even in our long range plan, we kind of explored our history. But as far as really looking at what the Public Art Committee is and can be, and if we do want to rebrand, what do we want? I mean, really, what do we want visually and inherently to come across to the public about what we do? I mean, we are so fortunate in that we are an official city entity, established in the mid 1980s, have been around, have had, and maybe this is my bias, a pretty darn successful run in these years, even though the committee has been volunteer. I don't want that to be interpreted as a negative, because there have been amazing people involved on this committee that have truly looked upon their work as more of a, I don't want to say a job, but just have just dedicated so much time. So what do you all think of us getting together and saying, look, this is who we are, where do we want to go, and think about this in just rebranding terms and in some of those things that Stoney had mentioned. Deb?
Are we talking about an actual rebranding, or do we just need to ramp up a promotion of the brand we already have? I don't know.
I don't think we really have a brand. I would argue we don't have a brand.
We're creating one then.
Yeah.
I guess I would disagree a little bit, Stoney, not to be a pain, but I do think we have a brand. I think I think there are people that maybe don't like it, but I also think that there's
I think we have a
doesn't
logo.
really speak to who we are. I mean, it's
Right.
I guess is my thing is we have a brand, but it doesn't. I guess my opinion of that, and that's why I've been so supportive of all of this, is it really doesn't speak as to what the committee is and what we do.
Yeah, I would argue, Kathy, that we have a logo. But like, I mean, and I'm not in the branding marketing world, and it's not something I even care that much about, but we recognize its impact on community perception and public relations. And so, as far as like, and I interpret brands as being a pretty consistent thing. Like here is the ecosystem of communications, like through like both visually and like the content of it. And so I don't know. Anyway, I think it needs a major dusting off at minimum.
Where to one of the things typically, if we're going to work with someone, generally, depending on the amount of money and help, it used to be 5,000. I don't know if it still is. If we have to look at least 3 companies, do we need to put out an RFP? And where I'm going with this is maybe to get us all thinking about branding and what it could mean for the committee, is maybe we can hire one of these companies, and perhaps one that the folks that Stoney met with, to work with us for a couple hours and to talk to us about what it means. So we're all on the same page in that effort.
My recollection is the same, that $5,000 is more of an administrative decision as to putting out an RFP. So I can check in and make sure that that's correct. As someone new to this committee, I know we have a logo. I learned that at the beginning. I think it was hard for me to connect the name with the logo. And so I think that branding and rebranding is different. And I personally think that it's more of an issue of identity, figuring out who we are, what we do, what our role is in the community. And once we answer all those questions, I think that's when we can think about rebranding, because I think there's a more basic layer that needs to be tackled before we talk about branding. And I don't know, my sense is that there's a lot of conversations around town about all the different entities that deal with arts and how we all kind of where all the edges meet in a way, and who is doing what, who lives under what organization. And I personally think it would be really good to have a citywide plan for what we want to see in terms of public art, and then who is doing it and how. And once we figure that out, then we can start branding, rebranding, and allocating more funds if needed. But right now, I agree that it looks like we are an arm of Arts Missoula, just like they have the cultural affairs and Spark Arts. You know, this committee seems to be kind of lost a little bit in there and lost in the city's structure for communication. So I think it would be good to have a conversation too with someone else in the city and say, we need to be elevated. We need to be one click, not three.
Mhm.
What is our role? And once we answer all of that, then ask for more money, because I don't think we're gonna get
Mhm.
much done, or at least we're not gonna meet all those vision, the vision and the goal with a small budget.
I agree. And I think stepping back in, it's always interesting hearing that, because we aren't the only people that can and do public art in the city. But the point of all of this, I mean, the point of having a city endorsed entity means that if the city is going to be involved in public art, we are the stewards of that. I mean, we've been established by ordinance. It's been reiterated by multiple ordinances. And I mean, quite honestly, every one of us should have read those and understand our charge for the city. And the unfortunate part of that is, because of not just our changing membership, but changing people within the city itself. Whether it be a Dale, an assistant city administrator, is that his official title, or a Lee Griffin from accounting, or the city council members themselves, or department heads, or whatever it is. It's like there's an ebb and a flow of how, and I get that it all depends on what everybody and the priorities of the city are at that point in time. But frankly, we're an entity of the city. We are the city's public art committee. I think where the Arts Missoula aspect gets confusing is, with all due respect, the funding of our coordinator. And technically obviously all of the arts organizations should work together, but our purpose is public art and encouraging the city's acceptance, inclusion, and support of public art within that city entity itself. I mean, there are private individuals out there who coordinate it, and businesses, and yes, we've worked with many of them, but it's truly important that within the city structure itself, that public art stands out and is supported. Boy, there's my soapbox. It's, well, and it is. I think one of the things that the committee has in the past been pretty darn successful at is reaching out to non-city entities and working with them in the public art world and other public agencies. But are we, the question is, we are established by the city to handle the city's public art. How far, and this is a good discussion, where does that ebb out into the community? We can't, we learned this long ago, we can't dictate to the private sector that they have to have public art unless that too was put in an ordinance. But what we can do is work with them to encourage that public art aspect. So I think on one hand, our mission based on ordinance is very clear, but I think because we do so much outside of the city entity itself, i.e. working with other public sector groups, working with the private sector, that's where maybe we need to figure out where we're, how we want to deal with that and that image. I do, Stoney, do you think, and Muerta, I agree that, we should all, step back and really look at what our charge is within the city. But going beyond that, do you think it would be worthwhile to work with an entity and say, okay, let's start thinking about branding beyond, or where we're going to go with this?
Well, so I actually think that, I'm totally open to exploring more options. Amy Casillo did strategic planning previously before she started the design business.
Mhm.
And so she has an experience in working with nonprofits who, in helping them as they think through things. And so actually, as I talked with her, really got the impression that her background and that was informing how she was approaching the design process. So I actually think because there is kind of a bit of muddiness in how we're proceeding, maybe even what the issues are or how to move forward, what our priorities need to be, and how we create alignment to create initiatives to position Compact in a meaningful way inside of our community, that it'd probably be great to actually sit down with her, invite her to a meeting and sit down and have her kind of lead us through some sort of visioning process of some sort, or just listen to her about how, the steps of considering how to even start thinking about design. Yeah.
No, I think that would be great. Because I think it's always good to get that outside perspective, or that unbiased perspective of what we're hearing. I will tell everyone, and I've said this to all of the new members when we sit down, is I think some of our newest members were surprised that we were actually a working committee, to the extent that we are a working committee. Is that, to a certain extent, we can wait around for % for arts. We don't have to go out and create projects. We don't have to go out and do more things in the community, but we have. I mean, we've created this projects that are collaborations between the city and other entities, whether it be public or private sector. So I think, and this is just based on what people have said to me when we've sat down and talked, it's like, man, you do all of this? I had no idea that this is what the Public Art Committee did, because I thought the Public Art Committee just chose art and everything was handed to us. So, does everybody feel like they could make maybe a couple hours or we could dedicate a meeting, because it'd be interesting, but have Amy, Stoney, you could maybe see what she would charge for this. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would propose that we see if she invite her in for, maybe an hour for our next meeting, something like that. So that we had a moment to touch base on any important detail agenda items, but we could spend a chunk of our time actually kind of digging into it with her. I can reach out.
How does everybody feel about that?
I like the idea.
Tiana or Dennis? Tiana, I'm very interested in your thoughts, just based on your history too, and being a director of a nonprofit arts organization. And, and this.
Yeah, well, I was reaching for my microphone. I think it's really important to have someone guide us through this process, especially because many of us haven't gone through nonprofit strategic planning, or, when I was with the Youth Symphony, we did a complete rebranding when we added an orchestra. So to have that kind of guidance through the process, I think is really, really helpful. So I would be all all for it.
Mhm. And maybe, I mean, image wise, rebranding or, logos and those kind of things. But I think sometimes other times when I've been a part of this, what comes out of it is the strength of what you truly are and what you have been, and everybody recognizing that. I guess what I would ask, if we do this, if everyone's in agreement, that everybody take some time, and you're going to hate me, but read the ordinances, see from whence we came, look at some of the background and our charge, and is that where we see ourselves in the present, and where do we see ourselves in the future based on that, and what do we need to do to get there? How does Stony?
I'm having a very difficult time finding how our PAC meetings are organized inside of our Google Drive. I mean, I see a major folder called Meetings, 2021 PAC meetings, but I'm not seeing the major folder inside of it. If maybe the kind of, if that could be shared with us in an independent email of here's how to access the folders, and with links to, bylaws, ordinances, meeting notes, all kind of separated out. So it's really easy to search for an email. That would enable this.
Brianne, can you help everybody with that?
Yes, I will definitely send that out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe a link to the latest, the long range plan, or where that can be located, or the last strategic plan, I think would be really good.
And again, I think there are things that I think the committee does well. And I think there's, as far as our brand in the community and what people recognize of us, I think there's always ways to improve, and, which is why people are constantly doing marketing and doing all of the other things. So can you talk to Amy and see if she would be available? Could I have a motion to have Amy, this is because what I'd like to do is include in the motion, if y'all agree, is to have a sum of up to a certain amount of money to hire Amy to meet or to come to our next meeting and just do some preliminary work with us on this branding issue. Because do we need to put something like that out to bid, or is this I don't think we do.
I don't think you do.
Because we're hiring,
But I guess I'm not clear. Are you inviting her to let her know what we would like to do and how she would plug into that work, and at some point give us a cost for the services? Because I think that's when you would know if she's going to charge more than 5,000, then we know we need to follow one path. If it's less than that, then we don't. And I don't know, given that we have $7,800, are we gonna blow our budget on branding and rebranding or not? I guess I think it would be good to know how much money are we looking at before we embark. That would just be my personal view. I agree with everything everyone's saying, and it's rebranding is super important once you know what it is that you want to achieve, and once you know how much it costs. So I think for the next meeting, I don't think you need to do anything, because she would just be coming to understand what it is that we want to do, assuming we know what we want to do.
Yeah, well, Stony, can you talk to her, let her know that we'll put her on the agenda and maybe. I don't know that we can ask her to help us at no cost.
I mean, do we have, I mean, I know for like with my board, I mean, any costs under X amount do not need board approval. Is that the same thing here, or do we have to seek approval for every?
We have to have approval of every budget item,
Okay.
right down to $30 copy bills.
We have to vote for that. Okay.
Mhm.
So will she be coming to, will we be paying for her to join the meeting? Is that what you're saying, Kathy?
I was listening to what Stony was saying, where she would come and spend an hour with us and help us understand.
Let me reach out to her and explore. And
Yeah.
based on her response, we can just vote over email, right? And so, is that right? Do we vote?
We can
don't.
put her on the agenda, but we cannot vote over email.
Well, then we'll have to wait. If we can't vote over email, then we'll have to wait till next time because I can't talk to her until,
Okay.
So what I might recommend we do then is do some preliminary work, because as we've noted, we clearly have some conversations to engage in. And I mean, Meritha, I'm really interested in, I think that you raised some really important points, and like kind of how we're positioned within the city and our level of priority for like with all the moving parts, I think is really important. And you have probably a much better sense of that certainly than I do. And I don't want to make assumptions for everybody here and their kind of sets of relationships, but I'm curious of like kind of listening to Kathy and hearing you, Kathy, talk about, how impressive it is for a volunteer committee to do all the work we do and all that's happened with it. Amazing. Is that the ideal role and function of the committee, or is there some other long-term vision where committee members actually are more advocates and connectors and kind of uphold parts of the system where we also have staff, normally there's oftentimes a staff member involved with some of these tasks that kind of just increase the capacity versus like everybody has a ton of dreams, work real hard, unclear of the resources available to make those dreams happen, burn out on them, leave the committee, rinse, wash, start again, which is kind of a trend that I've seen. So how do you kind of set up the long-term vision to adjust for that? And I think kind of public perception, city's perception of our role maybe is a good starting point with that.
Mm-hmm. And part of that is an upcoming agenda item we've got on that whole staffing, which we've already,
Yay.
that as well, but.
Okay, I'll reach out to Amy and we'll go from there. And so maybe next time though, we can start some take a look at the materials and look at what the reflections have been so far and kind of dust off our strategic plan and maybe start there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. So thanks, Tony, for doing that. James, on this street arts project, any update?
I do not have a lot of updates. As Kathy, you would probably be the first to know. I, from the bike pedboard, a couple of grant opportunities have been identified by Ben and his research and to grants that could be used towards the neighborhood traffic management program. And some of these are grants that are awarded nationally. And so we're just kind of doing some more preliminary work on what kind of funding could be required towards installations. And oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, do you foresee him needing us to help him with the writing of those proposals?
I believe that, we've kind of just been working on it preliminarily. Some of these grants are kind of wonky in the sense that it's very heavy-handed on the infrastructural type of, paint and structure application. But given the precedent of public art being used in these traffic calming situations, and I would think everyone on this board and many people across Missoula would support the idea of continuing artistic expression and like the traffic boxes and in the application of some of these traffic management programs. I could see how they could be married and that it could be an integral part of the grant application. Whether funding is allocated for the art in these projects is kind of, and what percentage is hard to determine at this point.
Cool.
But
Are they DOT department, like federal grants or?
so one in particular that we think, the requirements for one of the grants that we think the neighborhood traffic management program really matches up well with, that may be a likely successful application, is a community traffic safety grant, and they're generally awarded to universities, mayor's offices, people who are doing research. It's very focused on safety, and so they're looking for types of innovative procedures and tactics that can be employed, possibly even expanded upon, or are carried to other cities for general practice. And with the outcome being zero, casualties. They're very focused on reducing crash statistics and incident statistics. So that's kind of more, that would be a grant that is much more focused on getting the outcomes of the public safety. But as we've seen in other projects in the past, the application of art is often very applicable to these projects. So
Cool. Well, keep us posted if there's funding opportunities out there for that, and how we can help.
Lots of planning is going into into next year's road marking and execution of the street repairs. And so, at this time, there's just kind of a lot of forward thinking and looking ahead to what projects may be on the horizon in the spring. And hopefully, like we talked about on the subcommittee, Kathy, we can roll a couple of these experimental stipend art projects into these activities by next year.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments on the street art projects that James been working with? So I see we have Arts Missoula that joined us. Do we know who from Arts Missoula is with us?
Sorry, this is Brianne. That's not Arts Missoula. I just I messed something up when I was creating the meeting, and so
okay.
that's one of my accounts. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks, Bree. I appreciate it. I just didn't want someone to feel like we weren't welcoming. Stony, Pack Live.
Sorry, too many mice here. I have like 3 mice in front of me. I gotta pick the right one. So, I mean, last where we left off was a discussion about budget for it. I feel like I can't, because it's a thing that provides artists with stipends. I don't feel at liberty to make promises without knowing what kind of budget I have to work with. So my understanding is you were gonna come back in the new year with the number. We got 7,800 for all of us. I don't know how much I can do with, I mean, if we spend half of that on rebranding, or, whatever, 2,000, 3,000 bucks on, I think, again, this goes back to the big conversation. So I don't quite know what to do. I feel like I'm under-resourced with a wonderful and exciting potential project, but I'm not quite sure how to move it forward without the proper support.
So what would you propose for a budget? The last time we did it, and I guess I don't know if you're thinking that we didn't put enough money towards it, but I believe we did 3 months at $600, and we paid artists $200
Yeah, something like that.
for a performance. I think that's part of it. I think this is something that we could raise money for and get sponsorships for, or something like that. For me, that would not be a hard ask. But what, at the same time, yes, we have some money, but at the same time, this is it was a great project. And so if we decided we wanted, or if you had thought May, June, July, August, September, 5 months at $600 each, or I guess I'm just wondering what you're thinking on that. If you could have the be all end all.
Yeah, I think I presented a fairly ambitious framing back in October or something, and I'm just pulling it up right now. I had 5 months at 600. I think my total proposed cost, which include like a paid intern, because the other area that is the heavy lifting is actually, boots on the ground to support the artists during the summer. And so I've really been racking my mind to think about how do we deal with that. I'm not available. The reality is I'm not available during that time. I have tons of artists on the ground that I'm dealing with. I am at max cap during the summertime. So while I'm happy to do lifting in the off season and move things forward, I cannot make that promise. I will not be available. So I don't know, is there room for how's Brianne's time during that? Is there room to allocate a couple hours a month for support with that? My experience working with interns, one, it's important to pay them. I think it's real problematic for lots of reasons to not pay interns for their time and efforts, but it also requires support in its own. I don't know if y'all have worked with interns before. My experience has been it needs some hand-holding for them to really flourish in their roles. So I don't know that we have that capacity to support an intern in that way. Another thought that has come to my mind is in regards to maybe, we've thought about the subcommittee being members of this team. And I think certainly, Greg and I have been in conversation about this, and we're stoked to do something with media arts in May. But one way to offset maybe some of the burden of management is to parlay it and share it with other organizations who are equally invested in performing arts in the community. And so working with MAMA, working with West Side Theater, working with the ZAC, working with, whoever that, Missoula Symphony, theater, you name it, there's so many different places, and each month we could work with one group and they can then help manage their artists that they're advocating for boots on the ground, which isn't super different. We did a little different. We did kind of a hybrid style the first year. So those are some of the thoughts that I have right now, and I welcome your reflections.
Can you remind us what you thought of? So I'm thinking 3,000 for the artists. And that would be, so 600 a month, and we're still thinking first Fridays.
Yes.
And so 600, so 3 locations, either, so, and again, I was trying to go back to the October and find it. 1 artist for 600, 2 artists for 300. I remember what, because we did multiples last time.
Yeah, so it varies. It depends on who's proposing what. If you have like a group of 15, like a choral group,
Okay, I see.
you know, like it just kind of depends on the
Okay.
proposition. So we kind of use language, like for the application, we use language to say, you know, to kind of point to those different pieces. They could propose up to using the full 600 or less. Mhm.
And how much was for the intern? Do you remember?
I penciled in at 1,500 for them.
Oh, roughly 500 a month. Or no,
Less
no,
than
300 a month. Sorry.
Yeah.
5 months. Okay.
And I reached out to Greg. He had some ideas of sponsors. I'm doing a lot of sponsorship outreach, you know, for open air right now, and so I'm kind of sensitive to conflicts or over asking on in that respect. But I think Greg has some leads for folks that it's not a overlap, and so I'm going to try and meet with him. And happy to reach out. And you know, it could very well be picked up and easy to fund by the right party. And so I'm happy to reach out and see if we can bring in the resources. I just am hesitant to officially launch a call for artists until we kind of firm up our, you know.
Yeah.
budget.
I mean, it has been our practice not to put out any call unless we have funds intact. I would wholeheartedly help raise money
Thanks, Kathy. Great.
and actually have some ideas, but I don't, if you and Greg talk, and if you're going to do a phone call, maybe you could bring me in and I'd be
Great.
happy to help bring in some money there.
Great. Thanks, Kathy.
Grant, I mean, I look at, and I know it's $4,500 that we're talking about, but that to me is not a difficult number to achieve.
And yeah, right.
And
Totally, it's
again,
not a
part
big
of this goes back to our, yes, we have money, and yes, we have to prioritize how we want to do that money, but never without, and I will say from 1986 on, without a % for art program, if we have ideas for projects, we end up devising ways to raise money for those projects. And I'm not going to get into a whole nother discussion, but I guess in my opinion, I'd be more than willing to help try and get some money. And for your time frame, you would need to know that by March, am I right? By February, by our February meeting, you'd need to have that money in hand.
I'm just looking here. Yeah, I mean, it can be, so we have the first one is May, really the call, because May would be the School of Media Arts, then then June would be the first one. So, yeah, I mean, I think that we could, I feel like by March, by the latest, if we start to not have answers by then, we'll be kind of pushing it.
Is the art call that you did 2 years ago, would that be easily redone by just replacing dates and times? Is that something Brianne could work on?
Yeah, so I reached out to Brianne and got she sent over, I guess, did you say we're not using Submittable anymore and we're working with a different system?
I didn't say that.
Brianne, I'm sorry, I was asking Brianne.
I don't remember saying that. That's not something that I know of.
And that wouldn't be
Okay.
a decision that, with all due respect, not to be the omniscient one, but if we weren't using some.
I must have misunderstood what
Yeah.
I read.
I'd be like, no.
But anyway, I have she sent over the questions that I asked, so I'm happy to look over it. And we can tag team updating it. It should probably be, I mean, it probably looks pretty good and there might just be a couple of tweaks here and there.
Mhm. Yeah. Cool. Because, yeah, if we could, maybe if could get that into a form so that the committee could essentially approve it next month, and then we could have money in hand before it actually gets put out when you want it to be put out. That way we would be ready to hit the ground running. Does that sound?
That does sound good. The only thing that hasn't been addressed, and I'm curious to hear, I mean, Kathy, I appreciate all your thoughts. I also am curious to hear the thoughts of other committee members. You know, like how to go about actually supporting the artists once they get there. Like how we actually support the program once it's live.
Unmute yourselves. Would it be possible, and I'm just throwing this out as an idea, for a committee member to volunteer one first Friday to make the rounds to the artists or to help in any way with or be there if we could still get the intern? I mean, how do people feel about something like that? Any thoughts, James? I see you unmuted.
I have a pickup truck, and depending on what type of resources artists would need for their performance, you know, it would be, I think I could provide a little bit
Thank
in
you.
terms of materials or structures or whatever is necessary.
Thanks, James. Yeah, so I guess maybe it would be helpful if I kind of explain a little bit too of, at least so far, my experience of what artists need. It's a couple of things. One, it's somebody to check in with and make sure paperwork's done. We could probably make sure that's done ahead of time. But then there's, you know, it can be a bit of location finding, which I don't know, those are all like maybe logistics the subcommittee can work out, like maybe those are pieces that can be worked out in advance. But then there's the element of just like being present, documenting, and kind of posting to social media, really, which is kind of more in Brianne's camp. But you know, I think it's helpful when there is that energy around during, you know, like when it's actually happening, as well as like, it's raining, what do I do? Or I need an outlet, or, you know, like sometimes there's these last minute things that kind of come up that just having a contact person can be really helpful for them as well.
And if we can, once again, preempt some of that by, and I'm just going to throw out the signal boxes, for example, for the artists, we know where they can get power. We know which restrooms they can use. We know where they can get water. We know da, 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 and all that. Some of that stuff might, you know, alleviate things happening on site, but
Totally. Yeah.
Even have a representative there, like Stoney says, if there's something unforeseen that comes up, a face of the Public Art Committee to go around and check in with the artists. Are you doing okay? And
yeah, and
it might be something where we work out with our coordinator or whatever, or the intern, to make sure that things get posted on social media. So some of that can be done, but to be able to have maybe a member of the Public Art Committee show up and split it up and just make the rounds and make sure everybody's doing okay. And because they know how to set up their instruments, they know how, I mean, they're artists and performance artists, so they certainly would know more than I do, but just to have that, again, that face of the Public Art Committee present, I think could be good. So how would you all feel about that? What do you think? I mean, is it something that you would be willing to take a first Friday in May, June, July, August, September? Is that something people would be up for? Raise your hand if you would think.
Open that. Yeah.
My hand is raised. And so, Tiana, were you going to say something? Tiana?
Yeah, I'm having bad connection problems, so I don't know if you can hear me, but yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm happy to do anything. I actually really enjoyed the logistics aspect of that and finding outlets. So
Great.
Cool.
And
Count
then,
me
Well, I
in.
think, yeah, I think that's, if we could, I mean, and again, it's, I understand that it's volunteer. I understand that it's some time out of your first Friday. But it's, Stony, it's 30 minutes. Is it roughly 30 minutes that we ask them to perform?
no, I think it's like at least an hour.
Oh, okay.
Can go from, it really is kind of up to them how long they want to play for, but we do ask them to play to whatever it
Do an
is.
hour. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, some things might not warrant that time either. It kind of depends on the nature of the project.
Okay.
Truly,
Cool.
but yeah, I mean, but a PAC representative doesn't need to necessarily even be there for a full hour. I think them being able to have access to somebody's contact, if something goes haywire, this is who you reach out to. I think one of the benefits of having different people be a point person, one, it distributes the load, but two, you get the benefit of like seeing it in action. It's like, that's always the cream of the crop there, is to actually see it happening. That's the magic. All this is just the brutal stuff we do to support the magic, right? So I think that that's a benefit. And then there's maybe some other logistics, like we had talked about doing like a Pack Live sign if we had marketing materials, or had a logo. That's another way we can. So you might wind up handing them that material to prop up near them or something like that, or a hat or whatever. Okay, thanks everyone. I'll plan to reach out and we can,
Good.
and to be clear, I'm happy to take one of them as well. I just can't take on the entire program. So I appreciate your support and interest in it, and we can talk more in the future.
As an aside, I am downtown every first Friday for our Berkshire Hathaway art exhibits. So I'm available. So, okay.
I would be interested in maybe finding some performance artists that could contribute to that during the summer. So I know
Great.
several performance artists that I'd be
Great.
willing to reach out to. So
Awesome. Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks,
Okay.
Dennis. Cool. Traffic signal boxes, it's that time of year. We've got $4,500 and actually probably maybe 6,000 because I'm working, we currently have the replacement of the signal box at Reserve and Expressway, which is by Costco, which is Lillian's, she has agreed to repaint, and the neighborhood, because this is the neighborhood grants that they have requested that she repaint. We have the new signal box at the westbound entrance of I-90. And then the other signal box, which is close to I-90 on England and Reserve by Western, the business, right by the Hilton and all of that. The other one that very close to getting funding for is Russell and Third. So there would be 4 boxes. Our art call is essentially needs date changes and those types of things. So subcommittee, Dennis, you were on it last year, and Tiana, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I thought you said you or Deborah wanted to be on it this year. We just need to kind of make sure that we have our time frame, but in essence, looking at the same time frame that we've done in the past where the art call would go out for April and May. Artists, we would do the preliminary selection in June with the neighborhood and the funders and people involved. Interview in July, and then have the signal boxes completed at the end of August again. So pretty straightforward. Brianne can help with the art call and help get it out. There were 2 artists that I know of that didn't like making boxes. So the subcommittee, I think our discussion is, are we okay if somebody does a design and has it in the flat form so that the selection committee can actually see what they're doing versus making a box? Frankly, I'm okay with anything at this point, as long as we can see what the artists are proposing. But there aren't many signal boxes left, everybody. So if the highway department replaces them, we'll have those. I have been asked, and it's not really in our purview, but both people in Lolo and in Florence have asked us again if we would help guide them on the signal box, kind of with an art call and things like that. But we're running out unless the highway department replaces more of them. So James, you got to get going on the streets.
Kathy, I was going to ask you about reaching out to our neighbors down Valley. That seems like a good
Where?
opportunity. Down in Lolo and Florence.
They want to do it. And I have asked 2 businesses down there. There's 3 signal boxes in Lolo. I've asked 2 businesses if they would, just because I'm down there all the time, if they would be interested in funding 2 of them. I haven't thought of I haven't asked about a third, but these are people that are right by them. Florence has been trying to get this program going probably for 10 years. And then the people get excited about it and then they go away. So, but they're back again. So, and then this is something, and this is not obviously a vote thing, but one of the things I've kind of always wanted, I have always wanted to do is to do something that other than the public that promotes the signal box project, that is a takeaway type of thing. I've always, one of my ideas at one point was to have photos of all the tops of the signal boxes and have them on a t-shirt, or one side of a signal box and have it on a t-shirt or whatever, or postcards or something. I know that takes upfront money, but I was also trying to think of a way that the Public Art Committee could raise money in essence. And I know we'd have to work through a whole process, but I'm still trying to think of a way that we may bring some notoriety to the project, and also get those images out there. So
who owns the rights to the artwork? The artists?
The artists have the rights, but in our contracts, we asked for the right to do promotional materials and fundraising, that imagery for the Public Art Committee.
Great.
So we actually were thinking in 2009. I will ask those of you who wanted to be on the subcommittee, and maybe we can get together in one of the next weeks prior to the next meeting. Staffing, this is again perpetual on our agenda. I am not giving up on a director's position or something. Based on what, last year, what the committee felt, to have a staff person, I've been looking at different funding sources, both with the NEA, with some foundations, and would welcome anyone who wants to work with me on that. Again, I know, Marta, you said you would be interested in Deborah, so I've been gathering preliminary information. And also looking at, and I know this is a huge project, but some public art endowment for us, which could go for staffing or could go for projects. And, and again, I think this is part of a long range planning thing that we've talked about. But I believe that, and Stoney spoke to this a little bit before, it can only help our longevity and us as a committee to have a permanent staff person. And, last time it was an interesting process. Having that, we are the city's public art committee, having that person in the city and being a recognized invisible entity, I think can only strengthen us as to who we are. So I personally feel we can't give up on that. Thoughts? Do you agree? We still want to work towards having something like that? Mm-hmm.
I do. Sorry, I have a dog barking.
Yeah, no.
I think it's super important.
Mm-hmm. I do know that there is still support from Arts Missoula supporting us on that. I don't want us to get lost in the shuffle of, or just lost. I just don't want us to get lost in that whole funding operation of being tucked in here or tucked in there or tucked in somewhere just to have a position. I mean, I think this committee is an important committee, and has been since its inception. So I think it's similar to the Historic Preservation Office in that historically it brings a lot to Missoula, and artistically we bring a lot to Missoula within the city. Danny, do you want to has there been any talk on the Indigenous mural project? None?
No, but I will plan to check in with Lisa to kind of see if she's heard anything on her end. I know she was kind of like the point person with all of that, but yeah.
I guess my take was, and I certainly don't want to speak for Lisa, but I think she was, and help me out everyone, because we all heard her. I thought she said like Downtown Association was taking more of a leadership role, or the Downtown Partnership. Am I misremembering that?
Yeah, it was like the partnership.
Mm-hmm. So maybe Linda McCarthy might be someone to talk to too.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Sorry, Danny.
Oh yeah, no. I didn't have anything else other than that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll probably reach out to Lisa sometime this week and hopefully have something next month.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, I had a brain fart. There was something that came to my mind and then I lost it. It was about your point earlier, Kathy, when you were talking about endowment. Have you had a conversation with Marcy Allen at all about that?
I have not. I've set up other endowments, but I only could.
I don't know if it's worth like exploring working with those guys over at Missoula Community Foundation, or at least kind of exploring. And I know she's really been talking about kind of a need for a citywide arts plan as well. She's had some ideas that she's even formalized on paper. So I think she would be a good resource. I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
I've chatted with her over lunch about it in the past, but she just could be a good resource for us.
Yeah, no, she's great. She's great. I really hadn't, that was, we've talked about it in the past, so I really hadn't done anything yet, but yeah, that's a great resource. So I will give her a call and just kind of brainstorm with her too. So again, something that could ensure our longevity, which is important. Dash sculpture, have we heard anything from our friend Dennis?
Actually, I sent him an email about the end of December. There was that he was going to file an extension because the Dash organization wanted it installed by the end of the year. And so I sent him an email, and then I finally heard back, and he's working on it. He got an extension, and he's working on it, and says you'll keep in touch. So I guess soon. It's been about a year now since.
Yeah, well, since that very beginning, I think even before that. So could you ask him to send us some status photos that we could share with the library?
Yeah, definitely.
And with the committee, obviously. So I think, cool.
Yep, I'll do that.
Okay. The next agenda item, PAC history. This is Joan Jonko, who'd been on the Public Art Committee and was chair for a very long time. Her passed a couple of years ago, and so her daughter and son found paperwork from the Public Art Committee, and they finally decided there's a way to transfer it to us. So there's about 5 or 6 paper boxes. And so they are going to bring them to my office or somewhere like here on South Avenue or downtown. And then Brianna and I are going to start going through them, and things that we don't have in our record. We thought an easy thing, and if somebody has another idea, that would be more than welcome. But we have a quick copier scanner that things could just be fed in, and we could make files based on the project or whatever that subject is, just so we don't lose that information. Some of it we may already have, but the other part of that is to put it in our Google Drive so we actually have it. So that's, and we'll, Brianne will probably come over to our office on either South Avenue or downtown, whatever will work with her schedule, and maybe work on it an hour a week or so. And just feed stuff into the copier, email them to herself, and get them in the hard drive. So comments, suggestions? We'll let everyone know about all of the material too that we are putting in there. The next thing,
Deborah, jump in there.
Deborah. Oh, I'm sorry, Deborah.
No, I was just going to ask whether the family wants this stuff back or they just don't want to see it again.
They don't want to see it again.
Okay.
You know, it's interesting because even when I was staff to the Public Art Committee, there was, I hate to say this, there was not a whole lot of interest in saving the paperwork. Although when I did leave, they did put our paperwork in the basement of City Hall. So there are some records down there. But Joan, in her astuteness, made copies of everything. So not only are there some records down there, but she kept records as well. So we've got the Rattlesnake Neighborhood Soundwall project. you know, again, some of these things, and there might be a better way to put these on our agenda to just say, you know, table behind them so I don't have to address them. There really is nothing new there. The neighborhood does want to do something, but they have not been meeting over the winter. So same thing with process procedures. Brianna and I are trying to go through that and just through some of the things, just do a form. So I'd hope that we could have it this month, but I promise you we will have it next month, just based on some of the procedures and processes that we already have. Okay, 5:27, 3 minutes for ideas. Anyone have any new ideas or anything that could be a project for this year or the coming year? Deborah, did you see any great art? Oh, can't hear you. You're muted. You're muted. Oh,
I
not,
think I'm unmuted now.
Yeah.
We did walk down to the tip of the island to see some of that new stuff that has sprung up where 9/11 occurred, like that giant winged thing. It's just, it's astonishing to me, but.
Muerta, have you heard anything about the, I don't want to call it the Civic Center, the community center adjacent to Currents? Is that moving forward?
Yeah, I think they're still in the process of figuring out community interest, community need, like a needs assessment in a way. And then, I mean, ultimately, the city will have to bond to make it happen. So there has to be some really extensive public process for it. I think it's a concept that's still moving forward, but there hasn't been anything concrete to share with city council yet.
Any other capital improvement projects we should be aware of?
No, but you know, as we were talking about all the different places for this committee to have an impact on, I guess I just wanted to know what the participation has been for this committee in the Keras Park and the river corridor study that the city has paid for. I know that it was a partnership between the downtown partnership. So Linda McCarthy, very involved and helped recruit and finance degree the consultants, but you know, anything that happens along the trail, any improvements, I'm wondering, is going to be, you know, if we end up having that ice skating ribbon that's been, you know, proposed, or, you know, a light structure, a caddy that can kind of bring attention to that area. Those are in a way forms of art. And I'm just wondering, have you did you participate? I know that I was part of that, and I can't remember who from the PAC was at those meetings, but I think that would be an opportunity to not miss in terms of, for example, I was just thinking about bike racks and all these different spaces where I have an opportunity for artists to have some of their these public spaces. So
Technically, if those improvements are city funded, there theoretically should have been a 1.5% for art in that. And you know, one of the things we've done in the past is, of course, try to work with all of the collaborating agencies on if either art for art's sake, or what I'm going to call functional art, like bike racks, etc., similar to what we did for Currents and Splash, Montana. Cool. Anything else? Am I forgetting anything? Did
I
I miss?
have,
Oh, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, Kathy, I didn't mean to cut you short.
No, I just didn't, I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget anything or misstate anything.
One, I don't know a lot about this proposed project yet, but it ties into the Karis Park development. And I know that Parks and Rec, it was brought to the attention of the Bike Ped Board in our previous meeting last month that the city and Parks and Rec is looking to acquire the right of way underneath Bear Tracks Bridge.
Mhm.
And I know that in some of the long-term planning that was done previously, it was proposed that works of art be installed in the underpass areas.
Oh,
And I
great.
believe maybe some of the phrasing in that planning was that it's representative of indigenous art, but hopefully we can get more actual true indigenous artists working on these projects. And the underpass development is something I believe Parks and Rec is looking for lots of recreational opportunities, and many different recreational groups may be advocating for installation of different types of products in the newly remade bridge underpass. But art could certainly be a highlighting feature of the new look of the underpass.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping that it can be truly representative of the diverse nature of our community, both in the types of recreations that we're seeking there and also the art that reflects the community members.
So I feel like I'm being very left brain here, but technically if the city does acquire that right of way, and technically if there is art involved, technically the Public Art Committee needs to be involved with that project. So could you check on some of those things or keep us abreast of some of that since you're involved with it?
Yes, I'm not very involved. I think there is going to be a lot of review because Karis is so critical to
Mhm.
every person in this community. I think there's going to be a lengthy review process on
Hmm.
this development, and
Okay.
a lot of it will require the consent from MDT, which
Right.
is going to be huge invested, even if the right of way is transferred to the city, such as the other side of the bridge, as Boone and Crockett owns that right of way or has right to it. I think we'll probably hear a lot about this in the future, and hopefully we
Good.
can interject a lot of art.
Cool. Well, you're our brains on transportation. You're my brains on transportation. So thank you. Muerta?
Yeah, I don't mean to take too much time, but this just gets my wheels moving. And for example, what about all the infrastructure that's owned by the city water? And just like we are working on, the boxes, what about art on the outside of the lift stations that are in some pretty prominent locations? There was one or two on Arthur in the university,
Mhm.
South Hills. There are, some sprinkle throughout the city. Is that something that, I would think if it's owned by the city, then it falls within the purview of this committee to
Mhm.
make use of that space or as that canvas, if you will, for showcasing some art. And then the same thing about, I know that at some point soon, we're gonna have to replace the canopy for Karis Park. We have some money secured in case something happens, but one of the things that was talked about during the renovation or the planning for Karis Park was, do we get something different with perhaps some native art underneath it or on top of it so that it's seen from everywhere, not just a white. So I think, you know, if and when that happens, I think we should pounce on that because it would be
Absolutely. Absolutely.
project.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, I think that's important. And if you can, like some of these things, because I'm at City Hall or whatever an involvement, but if you all hear something, you have to have all of our eyes and ears out there. And then following it through, and then make sure we get it on our agenda, and also make sure, I mean, we want to be included. And I think I'm not going to say we are excluded for specific reasons, but sometimes, you know, it's because we're not a staff person in City Hall yet. You know, it's like, oh yeah, but Muerta, that's one of the great advantages of having you on the committee.
Well, I'm happy to pass along anything that I see happening. And as chair of the Public Works Committee, I get to learn about all these different facilities or little pieces of land that we now own because we own our water. So, you know, see why we couldn't make use of that.
Oh, I think that's the lift stations. That could be really interesting. So the only thing that our ordinance restricts us from having that 1.5% for our, as far as public buildings, is the wastewater treatment plant. And that was specifically written in for a very unique reason. And maybe someday we can get that taken out, but right now it's still in there. Otherwise, everything else, 1.5%. So, but again, Brianne will get that link to everybody. And I for our next meeting, anyway, I would ask that people read the original ordinance, the 1% and the 1.5%. And then just to familiarize yourself with really what we have as far as city actual funding. So, cool. If there's nothing else, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks for the great discussions tonight. I really
Kathy, I have something real quick. Just a fun fact, we have a call for artists open right now for open air. So if you know of anybody who might be interested in a residency program with us, it's online, open air.
Perfect.
.org. Yep. It closes up March 6th.
Yay. Well, and also I was going to let you know that we in our Berkshire Hathaway office downtown have a wonderful artist, Keziah Efta. So if you have a chance to come to our downtown office, it's beautiful. She did beautiful oils. So if you're not doing anything, we are a half a block north of the Broadway Higgins intersection on the east side of the street. So, okay, that being said, 5:39, we're 9 minutes late, but thank you all. I really appreciate it, and we'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks much.
Everyone.